PayPal or monthly. Really, really appreciate that. And if you're not able to do either, just share this video. That would be incredibly...
Because this is a crystal glass. This is Mikasa crystal. Very expensive, and only expensive wine goes in that. So you have to send us money.
Speaking of expensive, all these... you're constantly hearing all these big media outlets are going under. It's constantly happening. And I mean, I'm kind of from an old family. I remember getting up in the morning and reading the physical paper, the newspaper.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd only read the comics, but
yeah.
And then as I got older, I'd read the opinion section. I'd never read like the actual news. I just read opinions and the comics. That was the only thing that mattered to me.
Right.
But now that's not so much a thing anymore. What's up with that?
No, the first 50 years of my life, half a century. Okay, the first 50 years of my life, I would read two newspapers. I was born in Salem, Massachusetts. We had a morning newspaper, and we had the Salem Evening News at night. When I moved over to Lynn, we had two newspapers. So we had two daily papers almost in every city across the country. This is 50 years ago. All right. So what happened? Well, the internet happened. And now people can not only get information and opinion, mostly opinion, more opinion than information. They can get it for free. They don't have to subscribe. They don't have to pay, although there are paywalls on internet sites. And that's getting more severe, by the way. I've noticed they're really started to hammer that, right? And so what has happened is that employment of journalists has tanked. I was reading a study on that. I think I sent that to you. Yeah. There used to be something like 48,000 Americans that were employed just as writers for newspapers. That has been cut in half over 50 years. Half. And those who I'm talking about full-time jobs now. You can't get a full-time job anymore. It's less like the professorships. You can't get a tenure position. So what has happened is this is okay boomer. The only people who are screaming about and lamenting about the death of newsprint are the boomers. That's it.
Okay, boomers.
Yeah, they are. That's it. And this is a real cultural shift between your generation and my generation. It's because you guys are not. I mean, you'll see a newspaper lying around somewhere, and it's like an antique to you.
Right. well, I mean, if I want to know something, I can Google it, and I'll probably find that information.
Right.
You know, as far as how are you going to be informed about the things you don't know you needed to be informed about?
Right.
It just comes my way. I mean, I try to be an informed person. I actively seek out different opinions and from different sources. And it just naturally happens to me. I mean, most of my news nowadays is coming through podcasts because I don't have to sit there and read it. I can be walking around from class to class, whatever, and I'm just listening to a podcast, and I get pretty well informed on what's going on. I can listen to clips. You can't listen to audio clips on a newspaper.
No.
With a print newspaper, say somebody in some hearing said, in the Senate said X. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they actually said it. Could be lying to me. What it's made me realize is, I mean, because if you read any newspaper online now, it has a hyperlink to the source. So, I can't imagine in like the 1850s when slavery is the big debate. And somebody in the Senate, which may be hundreds of miles away from where you live, said something. You really have a lot of trust that one reporter, accurately heard whatever it was, sent it over, they transcribed it properly, because you have no way of checking if that's right.
Haven't you noticed that the trend as newspapers are now building out slick websites to replace their paper? Have you noticed that the front page, the home page of these papers, it's happening here in Santa Bumpkin. They just did the Santa Bumpkin News Depressed, and they slicked it up. The front page is just filled with video clicks. There are very few words now. People are not communicating with words. They're communicating with visuals because you're actually seeing like they had the Tesla with the guy throwing the
Oh,
steel
we could do a
Tesla.
whole podcast on that. I love that track.
Isn't that great?
Oh, it's so cool.
Isn't that great?
Anyway,
Yeah. But I mean, so all of them now are getting very slick. They're putting paywalls up. They'll give you like 10 days for free, but then they'll constantly remind you. So this has become a way of them trying. I think it's going to fail. My bottom line is I don't think this is going to work. I'm not going to pay for this bullshit. I'm not going to pay for this shit. I'm not going to pay for it.
Well, there are certain ways to circumvent it. I think Breitbart, maybe Huffington Post does the same thing. They have donors, which is great because there's people that just want this opinion. Journalists
Right.
investigating to validate their opinion or whatever.
Right. It conforms to their bias, and they're
right. And to a certain degree, that's useful because
Right.
they'll ask questions that most other outlets won't ask. They'll try and investigate stories most people don't care about.
Right.
And it's good because I can go over there and check out that. The sad thing is, I know Huffington Post has halved its employment. Breitbart is okay right now. I don't. Huffington Post, Vice, a couple other left-wing groups are having to slash their employment because they just can't make ends meet. People aren't clicking there. People aren't interested.
Foundations like the Heritage Foundation. Remember our friend Troy Warden?
Yeah, it's a think
he had a paid internship, and so he was writing good stuff. He was a good journalist.
The Daily Signal.
Yeah, the Daily Signal. So those I think will survive. And I think you're right. I think they will have donors and patrons keeping them alive. But the workforce is going to be shrunk remarkably. Because Troy was just on an internship, a paid internship.
Well, I mean, there was one story that came out a while ago. I can't remember where I read it. But basically, the only way your newspaper will survive is if a billionaire buys it. You have Bloomberg News. He owns Bloomberg. Bloomberg owns Bloomberg News.
Oh, by the way, I got news for you from Santa Barbara. The Montecito Journal has been sold to the owner. The owner of The Independent.
Ooh, you see, that's another thing. Mergers are going to happen all across the country because this is the only part of this story that really concerns me was that local news reporting is in decline, and there doesn't seem to be much of a help unless you have a local billionaire willing to buy it out, because it's not very profitable, and it's really sad because people should be more concerned about local politics than national because they actually can control it, have a debate, and it's not necessarily as partisan.
And here's the other thing. The synergy between social media postings and comments section. Try and find the letters to the editor in any of these new websites that are replacing the actual printed newspaper. You go to the Santa Bumpkin News to Press, you have to put into the search box the word letters.
By the way, for those of you who don't know, when he says Santa Barbara News to Press, he's referring to a local newspaper outlet called the Santa Barbara News Press.
He
just doesn't like dealing with the West.
They know how to deal with it. They know how to deal with it. But anyway.
Okay.
So people cannot. People used to say when I was young, growing up, throughout my most of my adult life, well, write a letter to the editor. So the boomers have been brought up to write letters to the editor. Guess what? They're not going to print them anymore, and there's a 200-word limit. Okay. And even that they won't print.
My great uncle has a literal binder of letters he sent, and they're beautiful. I mean, they're scathingly beautiful.
How many were published?
Oh, they're newspaper clippings. Yeah. Well, I mean, I have no idea how many he submitted. Someday we'll sit down together. We'll go through them. But
Is that Sam?
No. My grandfather's brother.
Oh, grandfather's brother.
My uncle Jack.
Jack. Okay.
Oh man, we could do a whole podcast on him. But anyway, wrapping up.
Yeah.
I'm only worried about local news being dead, not so much national. I think that the competition is good. There are too many websites out there anyway, so you can only be so informed as a human being. Political news junkies are always annoying. So.
Right. So if you want to make a comment, if you want local opinion to be expressed, do it on Facebook, do it on Instagram, do it on social media, because you're not going to be able to do it on your newspapers.
Okay.